So I'm Matt Ingram, and tonight what we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate the proper steps on how to change a tire. My daughter Devin is a senior at Circle High School, and she's behind the camera tonight. This is her car. We're going to change the front driver's tire of her Mustang tonight, and we'll just kind of go through some of the equipment first and some of the things that we're going to run through. So first of all, I've kind of laid things out. You know, when it's time to change a tire, you want to empty out your trunk and get all the things that you need and be organized. Now, first of all, one of the safety measures that we'd want to talk about before we even have to do this is, one, we want to get pulled off the road basically as far as we can out of traffic, okay? So off the shoulder and hopefully on a level flat surface if we can. In the case of a blowout, you might have to be doing this on a busy roadway, so it's going to be important to follow some safety procedures there. Ideally, if you could drive slow or something and get pulled off of a main road, maybe to a well-lit parking lot, that would be even better because you'll have a little bit less traffic around you, maybe better lighting, things like that. So I've got our tools out. The first thing I'll show you is I've laid out some road flares. Believe it or not, some people don't know how to use these old school flares. So basically, what we would end up doing is taking the cap off, and you just have a striker, and it just strikes like a great big match. And obviously, the business end wants to be away, and these would burn for about 15 minutes. Okay, and it would be important to kind of lay these out so as they burn, oncoming traffic knows to get out of your way. You can also use these, if necessary, as a wheel lock. Now, obviously, you would not want to light these, but if you needed to block your wheel, you could use one. Tonight, since we're changing a front tire and this is coming up, we're gonna not use a wheel block for a couple reasons. One, it's in park with the emergency brake on. We're on a very level surface in here, so a wheel block is really not necessary. But if you had a big rock, an unused flare, something that you could wedge in behind a tire, that would be a good idea. Particularly if you're changing a back tire, because if it's like in Devin's case, this is a rear wheel drive car. And so if we got the rear wheels up, we would be free to roll up front. But tonight, we won't worry about the wheel block part, okay? We're also gonna use a tire iron. So this would be as part of your equipment is our tire iron. It's gonna have one end that serves as a lug wrench so we can loosen and tighten our lug nuts on the tire. It also will probably have like a screwdriver type blade on this end. We won't need that tonight, but on some wheels that might have a hubcap covering up these lug nuts, we might use this end to pop that off and expose the lug nuts. So we'll use that here in a minute. Of course, we have our jack. Okay, and this is a scissor jack. It's very reliable, but it's certainly nothing that you want to trust your safety with. So when we do have the car up, we're going to take some safety measures to make sure that we're not putting ourselves at risk trusting this jack. Okay, but it's a scissor jack. So when we turn it one way and screw that in, it'll go up, and then we unscrew this, it'll come down, and that'll be a handy tool for us tonight. Maybe if the previous owner was nice enough, you have instructions. I don't think we'll need these tonight. Obviously, we have our spare tire. Now in Devin's case, this is a space saver spare tire. It's not a full-size tire. It doesn't have long wearing tread on it. And so this particular tire would be something that, once you get it on the car, this is gonna be good to drive, 50 miles an hour. And then you're going to want to get your tire fixed or replaced and get this off. This is not going to be a full-size spare to where you'd want to drive on this any longer than necessary. Okay? So we'll take it from here and we'll say that our car is pulled off into a safe place. We've got our equipment out. One other little piece of equipment that might come in handy is, of course, if you've got a light that you could use. Mine's got a magnet, so that's going to come in pretty handy here later. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, before we do anything with the car in the air, we're going to loosen these lug nuts, and we want to do that before we jack. the reason we want to loosen these lug nuts before we jack is a couple of reasons actually. One, the weight of the car allows me leverage, okay, to break these loose because these should be on there pretty tight. All right. If the wheel's up in the air and I try to loosen them, the wheel's just going to spin. Okay. So we're going to do this while it's on the ground. The other reason is once it's up in the air, again, that's not that jack is not built for heavy use. So if I've got this car in the air on a scissor jack and I start pulling and tugging on that, I'm putting rotational force on that jack and we run the risk of the car falling off of it. So before we mess with the jack, we're going to go ahead and then remember, lefty loosey, righty tighty, okay? So what we're going to do is, once you come around this way, I'm going to go ahead and go lefty loosey, and we're going to crack each one of these loose, okay? Again, I got the weight of the car, and we're just busting them loose. Nothing's coming off yet. Nothing's going to fall off. And we're going to break all of these loose to where basically I can get at them and they're able to be turned with a finger. Okay, so pretty close. We've got them loose and we're good. Okay, so now that those are all loose, we need to talk about our jack, all right? It's important that we actually put this jack on a good place on the car. We want to get into something structural, you know, part of the unibody, part of the frame rail. We want to make sure that the footing is good on the ground and that it's flat, okay? We never want to jack, like plastic molding or pieces of your fender or front end. One, it's just going to break those parts. You're not going to get the car off the ground. And if you were to jack under those things, it's not safe because as soon as one of those plastic parts break, the car comes down. So I'm going to have Devin come over and we're going to get under the car here. And let me get my flashlight. I'm going to kind of show you where some good ideas are to jack. So if you can come under here. Good. So right here, that's a piece of the frame right there. Okay, this is going to be a good place for us to put our jack. All right, versus out here on the plastic or something like that. Okay, so that's going to be our target. Okay, so we're going to get our jack down. Get it set here so it'll fit underneath there. Oh, roll away. Oh, let me hit your phone. Okay, so the other part of this too is we want to make sure that this jack is up basically as close to the wheel that we're raising as possible. Okay, so I feel pretty comfortable that we're here on this jack, on this part of the frame, up close to the wheel. We wouldn't want to be out here in the middle anywhere. We're basically trying to get this car up as little as possible, again, just for safety reasons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jack this car up. And we're only going to go up high enough to get this up, to give me enough clearance to get it off. Okay, we don't need to go any higher than that. Now I'm going to use this spare tire basically as a safety feature here. As you can see, it doesn't slide into my car yet. So as I start jacking, as soon as I can, I'm going to go ahead and just slide this under the car. And that's going to kind of give me a safety device to where if the car were to come down and fall off the jack, it would catch here and allow me enough room to reset my jack safely and get moving. If I didn't have this under there and the car fell down, it would come all the way down to the ground. And if the wheel was off, it might go down further to where I would really have a hard time getting the jack back under it. And then you just got a mess. Okay, so I've got tension on the jack. I'm going to raise this up, and I think what we'll do is we'll speed this up for time's sake. Okay, so what we've done is I've made sure that my jack is level on the ground with a solid footing. I've got it up just high enough to where basically I've got good clearance off the ground, but not unnecessarily high. And of course I've got my spare tire kind of wedged under there just in case this were to come down. Now, see, I've already loosened these, so I'm gonna go ahead and just start working these lug nuts off, okay? And again, we can kind of speed this up. Okay, so we've got them all off now, so I'm going to pull the wheel straight off, okay, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it over here, and I'm just going to replace it. I'm going to make this my new safety feature here, okay. Clearly it's a wider tire than what I just pulled out, all right, and then we're going to come right back on with our spare. Now, it's really important that while I'm working, I have, you know, safety features in place here, and I've got my jack. We're not going to put anything under the car that, you know, we don't want cut off, basically. So if this were to fall off the jack, anything under here as it comes down would be pretty devastating. So we want to make sure that, you know, we're not sticking our legs under there or our arms under there or anything like that. We're just going to make sure. I'm going to do this from the side so you can see. So I've got that on, and I'm just going to run these down and get them all started. Okay, we're just going to get these all started. Okay. So once these are all started, we'll just kind of work our way around. We're actually going to put them on in a star pattern. I'll show you that just a little bit more in detail when we're back on the ground, okay? But we're going to work all these on to where they're nice and flush and all finger tight, okay? And that wheel is seated in there straight, okay? And then at that point, you know, we'll show you the next step, but I'm going to speed this up just a little bit for you, okay? Okay, so if you noticed a difference in wheels here, what I've done is I just kind of put her normal wheel back on. I've got the spare back under there as a safety block there under the jack, or by the jack rather. All of these lug nuts are finger tight and seated into the wheel, okay? We want to make sure that when that's done and they're all seated like they should be, we don't have a bunch of wheel play in there, okay? But I just kind of did that for time's sake. If indeed this was a real tire change or a real emergency, then clearly this would be the spare, and our tire that needs repaired would be over there and whatnot. So what we're going to do is once we got all this finger tight, okay, I'm out of the way, I'm safe, okay, we're going to lower it back down to the ground for the same reasons as before. We're going to let the weight of the tire, or excuse me, the weight of the car sit on the tire. That's going to hold it in place so I can kind of wrench these lug nuts on to proper tightness. Okay, so I'll start lowering the jack and we'll just see what happens here. Okay, so now that we've got this back on the ground, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run these in a star pattern, okay? And what that's doing is it's torquing the wheel on with equal pressure around the rotor versus, let's say, wrenching one down real hard and then one down real hard. We want to make sure that this thing seats in correctly, all right? So we'll start with a star pattern and we'll jump across and we'll jump across. Okay, that's still a little bit looser than finger tight. Make sure it seats good. So here's my star pattern. Jump across. Okay, very good. And we're going to put basically equal torque on each one. And as I torque them, it pulls them all down. Okay, so we just kind of go back to where we started. And that's getting pretty tight. That's still pretty loose. There we go. Still in the star pattern. Jumping across. There we go. So now I'm getting there to where we've got good torque all the way around our 5 lug nuts here. So the last little thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in my star pattern again, but now I'm gonna give it a nice little body weight pull and make sure that we're good and tight. And again, in a tire change situation, this would actually be your spare. You can see as I'm pushing on this and pulling on this, rocking the car a little bit. That's why you would never want to do this while it's simply supported by that little scissor jack. Okay? All right. So now would be the time where we don't want to leave any of our tools out. We want to make sure that our wheel that needs to be repaired gets in the trunk. Flares, we need to get those extinguished, okay, because they're probably still burning, all right? And we just want to, again, make sure we're doing this safe. Oh, my glove had a blowout there. So, one final tip, particularly for my daughter who's filming, is this stuff here can be a lifesaver, all right? This is basically fixing a tire in a can. The way this would work is, again, if it wasn't like a serious blowout, and imagine we have a flat tire or a very low tire, we would just be able to screw that directly onto the valve and then empty the contents into your tire, okay? And what this does is it serves to seal holes, but also inflate your tire and get it up. And now this is not a permanent fix, but this is going to be a really good fix, again, to maybe get you home, all right? Get you home and then we can deal with it. And then, of course, if you ever do have a flat tire, this is a very good skill to have, being able to do this safely and efficiently. But my final lesson, again, for my daughter, would be just call your dad.